Welcome to the Human Design and Astro Club. My name's Crystal, and I'm a 1-3 sacral generator. I am a rising Capricorn, a Sagittarius sun, and an Aries moon. And I am here to help you win at the game called life. So, I have a very special guest today. I'm super excited about this because the topic, you might be able to tell that this is going to be a very interesting topic by the title. And so, real quick, I'm going to pass the mic over to Ian, and he is going to share a little bit about himself, and then we're going to dive into 2027. So, Ian, say hello. And if you know your big three, share it with our audience because everybody likes to know.
Yeah, that's perfect. I've gotten more in touch with this over time. So, my name is Ian. I'm running a project called Dharma Science Radio, and I love talking about human design, yoga,
Mm.
metaphysics, spirituality. I'm a very open minded person who finally found himself learning how to close off a little bit to things that don't matter.
Mm.
And ever since then, I've been having fun sharing the difference with as many people as I can. And so I have Pisces in my sun,
Mm.
I have Sagittarius rising, and I have Aquarius in my moon.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense for me now.
Mm.
I feel like
Yeah,
you really have to combine the human design and astrology together to really just see the full spectrum of the human. And so understanding that you're a Sagittarius rising and an Aquarius moon just makes a lot more sense. And that's why you like to talk about these weird topics, you know? Uh,
yeah, I've always been into it. I definitely saw within myself, it felt like I saw all these first lines because I've got like nine activations in the
mm,
first line. And yet I'm motivated by the second color. And so
mm,
there's not a harmony there. There's not a resonance there. It's a dissonance between the one and the two. They're very different from each other. And so it's like I've always been seeking to understand as deep as I possibly can, specifically what people don't yet understand.
mm,
It's like my dad's a mechanic.
mm.
He worked on cars. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll check in with my dad if I need to know anything about vehicles. I'm going to learn something else. And it's like, well, people already learned all basic philosophy, basic logic, basic physics. What are people not talking about? Because there's all kinds of stuff that's still hiding. I didn't quite have the answer, and I was seeking forever. Like I
Mm,
investigated everybody I could ever find online.
mm.
I was listening to Alan Watts and Bashar and Sadhguru and all these kinds of people since I was like a young child, like reading The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek before I was even like 15 or something. Because it's like,
Wow.
what's going on here? I need to know what's going on. And then it's not until human design bumped into my life physically that I found it, because
Mm.
I couldn't find it from my seeking. It was until my seeking relaxed and the allowing was just living that it happened. Typical third line fashion, I suppose.
Yeah, we have to bump into it. And it's interesting just the way that you explained a little bit of that because I actually just had an epiphany the other day in my variable intensive that I run because we started talking about the entities. And I know you probably have gone through that lecture. Not to get off topic, we're gonna get into 2027 in just a second, but I had the biggest gate 24, which is my north nodes moment of my life when I this epiphany came to me that I don't think I told you this, but in 2010 I got hit by a car on my bike
Mm.
and um an angel saved my life and that was my trigger. I don't if you were because Raw talks about there's usually a trigger and it's usually through the line, which I'm a first line and then I'm a third color. So that it prepares the body and changes the chemistry. I'm going to another place right now, but
This is
we're
what 2027 brings. We're going deep.
and so that prepared my body for what I'm doing now. And like the ghost with like there is a ghost whispering in my ear. Since I'm connected, spirit, ghost. So I had a whole breakthrough. I'm still processing it because it was wild. Like it was a lot of the piece that was there, it was like floating around in some other things. And I was like, I feel like there's a little more to this. And when I realized that that was my trigger, because I my entire life changed course after that, that it's just it all makes sense. Like all like and I feel like that's the whole thing with human design is that human design just makes our entire existence. And I feel like because fellow 1-3, our
Oh my
entire
God.
existence just make sense. So we can just breathe and we can just relax and enjoy the ride. Because that's the whole point of what human design gives us, right? Is the opportunity to enjoy the ride. People try to make it all these other things, but truly it is about enjoying the ride. And I feel like that's why we kind of need to have a little bit of an understanding. If I feel like we can't think too much about it. This is my open head of what's going on for 2027 because it's at this point, I know that we're seeing a lot of what Ross said was going to happen before, but it's still just a theory at this time.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is for each person to be able to engage with the theory and practice with the experiment for themselves to see and feel what actually resonates within the body. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've interacted when worked with people even, and it tends to be on the younger side of things. However, people that don't resonate with their chart or people where the
Mm,
stuff doesn't make sense to them. And so for those people, I simply say, well, if it doesn't make sense, then I hope you find something that does make sense.
mm,
Because like I'm a 1-3, and I tried to study everything I could possibly find to make sense of this life.
mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was making my entire life for human design. It felt like it perfectly fit my ignorance
Mm,
because I came from yoga. So I
mm-hmm.
was studying deep philosophies and deep physical experiential practices that one can do to achieve altered states and what it's like and what one can learn from expanded states. And yet there was always missing. There was always like, well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, it's cool, it makes sense, but I'm still just me, and it's still just the same life. And no matter how hyped up I could get about the next thing, it was still just another thing in a line of things. And now that I can see a little more clearly how each of the this and that things relate to each other, it's like, whoa, this answered specifically for me, maybe why I don't like this or that mantra. Because my inner
Mm,
authority said, well, I don't like that one anymore. I want to
mm,
do this now, you know? And being able to go, oh, you mean my body is actually more intelligent than I am, and I can trust it? Because people have said that like 5% or less of the information processing that happens within the brain and the body is actually conscious.
mm. Sorry, I got caught up here in my cord. That makes perfect sense. And like, and I again, that's also what human design is about, is getting back into the body, getting out of the mind and getting back into the body. And we've never been taught or allowed really to trust ourselves and to trust our body, that our body is the authority, really, truly, it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mechanism with it. We all have our own. Like for me, it's sacral. For you, it's emotional because you're a 1-3 emotional generator. And so it's understanding, well, how does my body function? And there's a whole bunch of nuance aside from that. There's so much gray that we really have to stop trying to fit everything into this one size fits all, even within human design. We're homogenizing human design.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation to talk about. But it's when you allow yourself to connect to your internal authority, which I think is the only thing that's going to get us through this 2027 shift, um, that we can then maybe again enjoy the ride.
As we get closer to 2027, it becomes more of a serious for humanity, life as a whole, life or death. Are you being correct to yourself? Are you being
Mm,
true to yourself?
mm,
And with like the 7 year cycle leading up to it, all the chaos that began there, it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper because that was a 7 cycle leading up to it. And now we're only within 2 or so years before the
no.
shift actually occurs. And it's like, do you feel like the people around you that you can trust them?
Mm,
Yes or no? And do you know how you make decisions, basically, is what it comes down to.
And really, my biggest thing that I keep telling people is get to the correct environment. I cannot stress this enough. Whatever you do, and if you're listening right now, and also do whatever you want, I'm not your fucking authority. But it's just, I always have to say that. But if you're here and you're listening to me, I encourage you to at least figure out where is the space that I can thrive, because we are in the entail of the survival that I feel like humanity had to go through this process because there's cycles, you know? And so we're at the tail end of survival. So what does that mean? It's going to kick up a notch. That means all the survival mechanisms that have been built from past societies, we're now coming to a head. We also are meeting our past, right? We're meeting all the crosses before us, before the cross of planning, just so you know. Actually, let me stop for a second. Ian, since you're here as a guest, can you tell everybody what 2027 is about? And we'll go from there because people might not even know people are saying 2027. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's the shift of the ages. It's, as far as I'm personally concerned, it's when the actual Aquarian age begins. And people put different timelines on this kind of
Mhm,
stuff. Everybody
mhm,
has their own perspective. However, as far as I can tell, it's when we're going through this changing of the age, this shifting of the paradigm, this transformational period wherein, if we look into the past, we see that there was war and devastation and destruction for as long as there's been written history. That's basically
mhm,
all we did. And if we were to predict the future based upon the past, we would say, we're probably going to have another war soon, and things are
mm,
going to get dark, and it's going to get really bad for everyone, and all this bad stuff. And I personally do not believe that's what's going to happen. Of
Hope.
course,
Come
there
on,
are
hope.
going, right, right. Of course, there are going to be people who are going to have a bad time. And technically, sooner or later, we're all going to die anyway. So it's kind of par for the course. The reality is that in this moment, we are alive. And as human beings, we are alive at a very special time.
Mm,
2027 marks when the next stage of evolution is said to be born from human mothers.
mm,
And the closest thing we have to a preview of them is that famous story that's gone viral now called the telepathy tapes,
yes,
wherein we have the
I've been listening.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty good stuff. It's nice because we have evidence now. We have people talking about their experiences, sharing that there is more to life than what we see with our naked eyes. We only see a very limited bandwidth. Like, I think it's between 400 and 720 nanometers. I heard that
Mm,
keynote like yesterday.
mm,
And there's an infinity of electromagnetism below that, and there's an infinity of electromagnetism above that. And it's all interrelating as one. And so
mhm.
2027, whew, there's so many different layers
I
of what
know.
this difference is bringing. Because one thing I could say is there's a process called the locks and keys of the
Mhm,
global cycles, wherein there is something as a leader, there is a way to the temple where we can witness something unfold. And the keys to those locks, they change over time.
mhm,
Like how something I've seen is that societally or evolutionarily, there tends to be long periods of minimal change
mhm.
and then a dramatic change that influences everything, that becomes a new normal that is then carried forward as part of the nature of mutation and how this works. And so part of the shifting of the locks and the keys, well, the locks are in the same place. However, the keys are continually shifting around as we go through the ages. And we're shifting out of a tribal bargain.
Mhm,
For the past 400 years, there's been a bargain, there's been an agreement, there have been deals made, and they have to do with identifying details and experimenting with a pattern.
mm,
And that is what allowed society to grow to the height that it is at today, where we have so many people and we have all these trains that run on time relatively. We have all these boats that ship food relatively on time. And,
Mhm.
it goes from India to New York and you can have your rice and
Right.
whatever that is. That's all rooted in the cross of planning
That's the
because that
bargain.
exactly, it's
Let me
the
exchange with you. Let me support you.
exactly, you do this for me, I'll do that for you, and we can agree, and great, we're working together. And now, sadly, the nature of that with the human mind is that people have made a lot of black market deals. They've made closed door deals behind our backs without our consent, with our money as we the people.
Hmm.
And so if I think too much about that, it just makes me upset.
Hmm.
And before I knew about human design, I wondered, how is it possible this world is so messed up? Is it ever
Mm.
going to get better? What's going to happen?
Mm.
And the fact of the matter is, as far as I can tell, as soon as February 15th of 2027 hits
Whew.
and we're in the new cycle, all the bargains, all the deals, all the agreements are, it's like playtime is over.
But
There's
Raw
no,
did say, I just want to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
you're
but
good.
just because I want people are like, oh God, so everything's going to change in that movie. Raw did say it would take hundreds of years of completely dismantling the cross of planning and also where the humans as we know it, might not exist anymore at that point. But it's not just going to happen like in a vacuum. There,
Right.
yeah. So I just wanted to say that because it sounds a little scary.
Exactly. There can be big change coming. And the thing is that what I've seen is that the change, it never occurs exactly where, when, why, how I think it would, could, should.
Exactly.
It's like whatever we think it's going to be, my belief is that's almost like the evidence of, oh, okay, well, it's not that one because I was able to
Uh,
think of it. My perception is that this timeline we're on right now is the one where we transcend our limiting beliefs. And it doesn't matter what your belief is, if you're thinking, that's a limitation. It's a
mm,
communication. You have to put a limit on something to communicate it. Otherwise, there's no meaning because it has to be finite.
right. So let's talk about because you have the cross that's ending, correct?
I do. I'm across the
Okay.
planning.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. So basically, what you've been saying in a nutshell, and the way that I like to see it is almost like the background frequency that we were all born into, that we are all currently experiencing. Because whether we have the cross of planning in our personal charts or whether we don't and we have a completely different cross, we still are born under what's called the cross of planning, this bargain that we keep talking about. But what we're saying is in 2027, that bargain ends, that cross ends. And the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix, maybe you have that cross in your chart. That's the one that's going to be quote unquote born or activated, or that's the one that comes online. And so, can you talk about what does the cross of planning mean to you since it is your cross? How do you, because I know you've already touched on it basically, but how do you see that this ending occurring and then the sleeping phoenix? I had a vision actually a few months ago about the cross of the sleeping phoenix
Yeah, yeah.
of the potential timeline because there's we can't just say it's going to be 100% this timeline. I feel like anybody that's telling you stuff like that just run away from because there's no way that we can be that certain. I don't know if it's my open head being a 1-3, having uncertainty sense, whatever, but I just feel like to be that prescriptive and descriptive about it, it's just that's I don't know, maybe it's a sad me too. I don't like you putting me in a box. So,
Yeah.
but
That's why I
what?
love,
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, that's why I love the mechanics so much to start answering your question around the cross of planning and something I'd like to say about how it relates to the global ages.
Mm,
Because so there's a cross of planning in the background frequency, like you mentioned, and then there's also a cross of planning, and I'm born through that cross. And they're very different things.
mm-hmm,
Because when I'm looking at a body graph, like for an individual person I'm working with or my own body graph, I can see their individual cross. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
microcosm of the entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'm looking at the global ages, I'm looking at the macrocosm. I'm looking at the global orchestration directories or the gods of the universe. I'm looking at the program. And so normal human design, we take a microscope and we look into the individual person. And then rave cosmology, which is where 2027 and these ages come from, is when we take the microscope the other direction into a looking glass and we look far away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, as a cross of planning, it has been really interesting because in my receptivity, I have witnessed what appears to be a plan that already exists. And when I saw my body graph, it was like my introduction to the plan. It
Hmm.
was like, and here you go. These are your schematics in the plan. This is your make and model. These are your details. And henceforth, there's been this process of recognizing that, yeah, it's not simply delusional to believe that life is exactly perfect as it is. And it's
Oh,
the freedom of my imagination that can say otherwise.
oh, that was
It's
such
that's
a
how
hope. That was
free.
so hope. That was like,
Yes,
yeah, that was such a hope,
it's
hope quote right there.
it's
Ah,
so what I am because I can't let go of it.
yeah, you got
It's
once
also the
you
17, my
uh
17-6, because it says perfected leading is one and the same with perfected following.
it's
And those
true.
who wish to lead must know first how to serve.
Well, I think that's why with desire, there's the whole leader to follower, you know, binary there.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I, as a desire motivation, I 100% relate to that. I think you need to know as a leader how to follow and to lead at the same time.
absolutely. Because if you're a leader and you can't follow, then you can't actually lead anyone because they try to follow you and it's like, hey, I can't follow you because you don't know
Mhm.
how to follow me first. And
Mm, yeah, yeah.
And yet, if the manager of the restaurant knows how to run every single position, they know how to fill in, they know how to serve, then everybody goes, oh, yeah, wow, look at them. Okay, that made sense. Thank you for showing me how it's done. You know, monkey see,
Mhm.
monkey do, and now I know better.
Yeah, it is monkey see, monkey do with the third line. It really, and wherever it goes, whether it's in the line, through the profiles, through the gates, through the colors, through the tones, it's all speaking to a sense of action and the way in which we take action. And so I don't know. Sorry, I have a lot of threes, everywhere. Variable,
Right. And then go figure, I'm
profile.
given that fourth personality tone. So I'm learning all about this meditation of how I don't have action until it
Mm.
simply happens. Meditative absorption into it.
Yeah, it's very third eye. It's like you're just like it's a weird seeing with the fourth tone. It's an out of this world, futuristic, obviously connected to the solar plexus binary that you don't know till you know is what I say. I tell people that are fourth tone, it's an unfolding. It's an unfolding. And you have to be able to just witness it without trying to make sense of it until you know. You know when you know when you know.
Yep. I mean, I was told that when I was a child that I know what I need to know when I need to know it, not a moment sooner and not a
True.
moment later.
It's true.
And
And
so if
so
I don't know something, it must mean I don't actually need to know it right now.
I guess that is all, and that kind of takes guilt away when
Yeah.
you do it that way too.
Yeah, I used to be so ridden with guilt. I was giving myself anxiety and like ulcers and acne and all this stuff.
Wow.
So I was trying to fix it. And the more I try to fix it, the worse I make it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Guilt
So
transference, yeah.
what is the cross of planning?
Is the channel 3740 and it's the 16th gate and it's the ninth gate. So that 3740 is the channel of community. It's all about in the 37, it's like the mother and the father, the mouth of the family that wants to care and be compassionate. And then the 40 is kind of like the hardworking father who leaves all the compassion to go earn the money and then come back home and to get the massage and the compassion. And okay, here's my strength back. I feel good. Thank you for massaging me. And then there's the nine, and the nine is all about focusing in on details. It's all about really getting to the nitty gritty of it. And on the other half of that is the 16. And what the
Mm,
16 does is it takes the details from the 9 and it goes, okay, I'm going to say those details are the truth. I'm going to pretend they're the truth. I'm going to make the best of it and see what happens if I experiment with this, if I
mm-hmm,
identify with this and take it on and really become one with it and try it out. So, for the past 400 years, we've been influenced by this cross as a background frequency vibration that says just find a deal, find some details, experiment with those details, make a deal, and follow that plan.
mm,
Whereas 2027 comes and it cuts that deal straight in half. It says, forget your deal. I am very busy right now with my survival, with my
mm,
thriving, with my life, with my stuff, and I don't have time for stuff that doesn't matter for me. I am far too busy
mm,
doing my life. And there's even two other gates. It's like the 55 and the 39, I want to say, but those are a channel.
mm-hmm. Well, we have a huge mutation happening with spirit in 2027 between the 39 and 55, the 6, the which does hook up to the motor. There's a whole configuration where we're basically going to uncover what's underneath the solar plexus, and it's going to go through is this technically the final mutation of the solar
Yeah.
plexus or
Yes, this is when the solar plexus will complete its mutation on February 15th of 2027. And so something really miraculous about that is it's like there is a quality of what it means to be true, to be really technically true within awareness.
hmm,
And it feels to me that truth is still developing, truth is still cooking itself.
yes.
And when 2027 hits and this mutation occurs, that is kind of like the marker of humanity has done the majority of the work it will ever
Yes.
do for the totality. And
Yes.
so it's like with the 1949 being cut in half, there is no longer the need to manipulate the form based upon any kind of awareness. It's like the truth is now there's a higher order of acceptance available
Mm,
for the consciousness of the totality. And so there's still further development for us as individual human beings.
hmm.
And yet, the totality, consciousness itself goes, you know what? I've had enough of what it's like imagining myself separate. I
Mm,
don't want to be separate anymore. I want to see
mm.
what it's like if you put three or four of me together into one.
Oh, yeah, and that's the rave.
Precisely. And so we are like the last vestiges of humanity, the last
Wow.
explorers into individual consciousness where we can pretend that we're different from each other.
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, didn't Ross say something along the lines, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but something along the lines of like human design is basically just for like the current human. It's not the raves are gonna have no use of really this, which people are like, what are you
I
talking about
mean,
the raves?
yes, absolutely. The Raves are the ultimate sci-fi,
Yes.
freaky, amazing, incredible thing. Like my understanding is it's literally to the point where a matured Rave could wave its hands in front of the computer. And not only does it know every single one and zero, all the data and how it interacts with itself, it can operate the computer without touching it.
Oh,
It can,
sorry.
you
I'm
know,
gonna say something, but keep going, keep going, keep going. I
yeah,
want to say
yeah. Well,
something.
there's literally the head center, like the head center for us as humans, it's aimed downward.
Right,
It's a pressure.
right.
It gives us pressure to think. In the rave, it's been flipped upside down. It's no longer a pressure, it's instead a funnel. What is it
Mm,
funneling? It's taking in raw
source.
vibration, raw source, the raw data itself. Like I think of a matrix screen, like the matrix with the green text crawl
Yeah.
down.
Hmm.
I imagine the down crawl. What if the text is also moving up? What if
Yeah.
it's moving
Or
forward,
it's
towards,
going out every
backward,
which direction.
at the same time? And then there's different layers of symmetry that can unfold relative to all those orders of occurrence.
Exactly. So I had a vision. This vision was a few years ago, actually, that we have, and I believe this is what the raves are going to have activated, is we have chakras in our hands, We have them actually as humans, but they're dormant in us. I was shown a sign that it's gray is what I was shown. And it kind of looks like the hand with the eye in it. And because it's another seeing. And so they're gonna have those chakras activated in them. Is what I it seems like. Well,
Yeah,
it's very
definitely.
sci-fi. It's very sci-fi.
I definitely think that they're going to have more activated than we have, especially considering there's that promise of the 11 centered rave potentially eventually, but
Right,
he said it would
right.
also never happen.
Yes, I heard that
And
theory as well.
and then if I'm being really technical about like what a chakra is or an energy center, I would literally call every single atom a
Mm,
chakra.
yeah.
You know, they're everywhere. It's everything. It's all energy interplaying with itself. And then we started to study the I Ching, which describes, oh, these are the different kinds of changes that occur.
Mm,
And now that we know, oh, this change and this change can relate together and make this new thing, we start
mhm.
to study these changes. We become time travelers
Yes.
because we remember, even at the most basic level, every single moment you are time traveling forward at the rate of 1 second per second.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
And yet, when you feel into that experience, depending on where your neurochemistry is at, where your brain is at, and where your body and heart is at, 1 second could feel like a minute or an hour could feel like 1 second.
Yeah. I'm wondering also, like, how is time going to exist, like, in relative to us as the current humans with the changes? Because, and I think we're kind of seeing something play out with that within the 7 year shattering that we're currently in that started in 2020. And that's when I was like, oh, I guess Raw was right. That is when I officially accepted everything for what it was the day the world shut down. Because I found human design sometime around 2016, and then it was 2017 that I bumped into 2027 because at that time nobody was talking about any of this stuff. I couldn't, but I'm at the 1-3. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to find it.
I'm gonna find it, especially if I need to know. And so I read about 2027, and so we're going into receptivity, guys, which doesn't really make sense with the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So I'm trying to figure out because I'm like, that's a little bit of at least mentally, it sounds like a contradiction.
So, well, yes, that's the most beautiful thing. I love contradictions. That's one of my all time favorite
Yeah.
words. So, how are we going into receptivity of a sleeping phoenix?
Yes.
I believe it has to do with the abundance of our spirit more than anything. And so, do we have a state within ourselves wherein we are fully abundant, fully
Mm.
allowing to the nature of life?
And what is
Can we access
abundance?
that place? What is abundance?
Because people have a very
Well, I love this one.
interesting
This is so great.
idea. And like,
What I love about,
go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
well, what I love about it is this was one that Bashar gave me many years ago. Abundance is the nature of the universe. It's
Mm,
basically infinity. It's the absolute support that we are given by what exists. And so, as part of that, if your alignment is with a negative experience, you can have that negative experience all the way through to the end.
yeah.
And if your alignment is with a positive experience, you can have that positive experience all the way on through to the end. And so it's like there are mechanics behind the universe that allow us to exist and begin to think about, are there mechanics behind the universe? Is there a
Mm,
meaning to life? And
hmm.
the mechanics, they don't care. Like you could believe in them or not. They'll
Yeah, they're
support you
still
either way.
existing.
Yes, they support you either way.
Doesn't matter if you know about this stuff or not. It's still happening. When people are like,
Precisely.
"Oh, they don't know their design or whatever," I'm like, "Who cares? If they're if they're living their design, it's just going to express itself. That's all it is. That's all
Mm-hmm,
design
mm-hmm.
is an expression of your own personal existence in this ride that you decided to show up in. You know, that's it."
Right, and That's why this world is suffering, is because there's so few people that are sharing their gift.
Mm.
It's like either way you can see, I could see how, oh, I could see how that guitar is not well tuned, or I could see that that singer is really good at what they're singing. And each one of us has the opportunity in this life, I believe, to get into alignment with our truth.
Mm.
And so it's part of my belief system that at any moment, anyone, anywhere, any when, you could begin the process of waking up to the bigger picture.
Okay, so let's end on that because that was a really good point. Because that's basically what's going to happen, right? 2020, and like that's what we're kind of in the what the hell is happening right now because we're all being woken up. That's what the sleeping phoenix is. It's about
Right.
being woken up to spirit. And
Mm-hmm.
in Judaism, and I know that Ra talks about this with Gate 55, the gate of spirit, that it's also known as David's cup.
Mm.
And so there's that element of what you were just saying, that we are always full. Spirit is always full. Spirit is always abundant. Spirit is the abundance of the entirety of existence and all beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And so what what do you think that's going to be if just because like again we are not there yet, so right now we're just it's theory to me as a 1-3. I'm
I
like
think
until we meet it we're not going to know for sure, but what is waking up to the sleeping phoenix actually going to look like in just an idea so
I
far?
think yeah, I think part of the beauty is waking up within a dream and realizing you're still dreaming.
Hmm.
The sleeping phoenix is rising from the ashes, dying and rising again within the dream.
Mm.
And so going to sleep lets us be here in the physical world. It's like there's so much change to witness. And if we have the courage to trust our inner authority,
Mm-hmm.
then I believe we're guaranteed to be able to at least survive in the coming
Mm.
age.
Yes, see that,
Because,
yes.
like you said, the change isn't like instantaneous, the whole world flips upside down. The change is on the energetic, subtle field. So if you're paying attention subtly, like if you already are a meditator, you might feel, whoa, the energy has shifted. There's been a disturbance in the force. Something has changed.
Like when the program changes weekly, I could
Precisely.
actually, again, I told you I'm crazy with the transits and like I'm tapped in a way that I'm like, I don't know if everybody's this tapped in, but I'm just very sensitive. And so I can actually feel the transits. I can feel each shift that's occurring and usually right before it occurs, depending upon what it is. Like I can feel when the next program is coming in or when it has entered, or even as the lines change daily, I can feel the changes. Like now we're in like this fourth line energy, or about to be. It's I know it's happening sometime now. And so I'm like, okay, so now it's time to feel this connection within. We have the gate 35 right now, the gate of feeling, just currently as we're recording this, guys. Okay, so if you had any final words to give the Human Design and Astro Club about how to ease into 2027, what would you be your final words for that?
Mm. How to ease into 2027. If you haven't already begun the process of type strategy and inner authority, then please, I suggest trying it out. Experiment with trusting your body for making decisions. It doesn't have to be about what you're thinking about because
Mm.
the body is very intelligent. So the invitation is always to try it out.
Mhm.
And if you have, maybe consider trying what it feels like to experiment with your primary health system. See
Mm.
what your diet does within your body. See what it feels like to be in the right environment. And remember that you can't force this stuff. I know we've only got a couple years until 2027 hits, and the only way we can be ready for it is that if we truly trust beyond what our mind thinks, that our bodies know what to do.
I know.
And all I can say is the more you experiment, the more evidence you have, and the more evidence your mind has, the easier it gets.
Oh, that last part right there. I'm gonna have to make that into a little clip because because that was perfection. Because it really boils down to surrender. Surrender of the physical form, that the body is always going to get you to the right place. And it's hard because the mind's like, even me saying that, my mind's going, no way, no way. Because it still does. It doesn't matter how long you've been deconditioning for. The not self always shows up. The mind is always there. And so it's about saying, let me just experiment. If we have the 16 right now that I think can help push this evolutionary process through, right? Gate 16 says, I experiment. So maybe it's time to say, you know what? I'm going to look into my determination. I'm going to look into my PHS. I'm going to look into see what does it feel like to just be in space? What is my body saying? Like I'm kitchen's environment. And so I have this whole experiment that I did. I before I did my variable intensive, I did a workshop. And so in the workshop, we did a physical experiment where I made everybody move about their physical space and move within the space that they are into what, if that space existed, what would that environment be set up as? So I was like, okay, if your kitchen's environment, for example, go to the middle of the room. Go to the middle of the room and just stand there, close your eyes, take a breath, or if you know your cognition, connect to that in some way and just be. Don't try to make sense of it. Just feel the body, feel into the body. And so every single person was like, oh my God, I've had this experience. I had this experience. I felt the connection of what it actually feels like to be in my form. So it's time to just experiment. 213 is telling you this. It's time because that's what we're here for, right? And we're here to move. I feel like 1 3s are really here to move the evolutionary process forward because we're the only profile on the lower triagram that's willing to try and to try to see what's correct. We experiment to know what's correct. So the first line goes, okay, this is what happened, right? We gathered the data. Here's what happened. It's time to gather some data and just
You
figure
know,
out for yourself what's correct for you as an individual.
hmm speaking of gathering data, I don't want to interrupt, but I remember hearing Ross say the other day that I think statistically, the two most common profiles are 1 3 and 6 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's as if the 1 3 is holding the foundation, making sure we don't stray too far from what's actually stable, whereas the 6 2 is on that bleeding edge, on the cutting
It
edge of
is.
paving the new pathway where you just go, wow, they're different.
Every sixth line, I say with every, I'm like, we are not the same breed. Um, very different versions of humans. Like you can see that in a lot of different areas with human design. If you really want to see what humanity looks like, go look at some like extreme aspects, right? The 3 and the 6. Go look at an emotional and a non-emotional, and you'll be able to see the difference of humanity. And I think that's the beauty that human design has gifted us, is being able to not just see the self, but to actually be able to see the other. And I think that's a missing ingredient that we have in the human design community is we're so focused, and maybe this is just my open throat, we're so focused on the self that we are so tone deaf that we can't look out and see that there's somebody sitting right across from you. Sorry, my desire.
No, it's beautiful. It's perfect because, as a 1 3, I studied a lot of Raw, and he very much conditioned me into radical individualism. And I was surrounded by other people who were totally engrossed within it. And then now I'm living here in a different space with somebody who is living their truth,
Mm,
but they don't actually really listen to Raw. They
nice.
don't resonate with Raw.
A lot of people don't.
And so, right, this person has helped me to see and realize within my own direct life and experience that no matter how certain I could be about what I think the truth is,
Mm.
to another person, it's just the perspective of another person.
It's all our own filter. And that's what comes back to resonance. Like you have to like if you're here right now, there is a high chance you resonate to my aura. Okay, you're on my fractal. And so you're gonna hear me. But then there's some people that pop in and they're like, I don't like this bitch. And that's fine.
Oof, be gone with you.
Yeah, go find the one that you do like. And that's the
Yes.
beauty of differentiation. Go out there and be different, guys. So I'm going to sign off now because we have talked every which possible way that we can. And we didn't even get to so many details that I wish we would have gotten to. So maybe another time. But I want to thank you all for being here. Ian, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your genius, that receptivity that you have that is just not me at all. And this has been wonderful. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.